Good morning, folks. I'm Donald Ware, here to introduce Ralph Ring. I know probably 90-some people who have been on board alien vehicles many times. I know one lady who said that she was asked to use her mind to help control one, but Ralph Ring is the only person I know who has co-piloted a flying saucer that we made. He has lived in Las Vegas on and off for about 40 years. Please welcome Ralph Ring.
Thank you. You're welcome. Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me? I can't see you, but I know you're out there. And I want to be able to thank you all for coming, and I want to thank the Source for all of us being here together. I'm going to talk to you today about a little bit about me and a lot about Nikola Tesla, Otis T. Carr, and the OTC-X1 spacecraft, which I had the privilege and honor of having a great deal of activity with. I guess it started for me when I was a kid. We lived in the woods in Northern California, at a place called Paradise. It's just up above Chico, California. And we used to walk to school 7 miles round trip every day, my sister and I. And during that time, I learned a lot about natural law, about how things are, how things work. My strongest experience was with an anthill that we ran into. I wanted to pester it with a stick to see what they do. And before I got done, half of my body was stinging all the way home. I realized you don't mess with Mother Nature unless you know what you're doing. And from then on, when we passed the anthill, I had a great deal of respect for them and their home and everything else. And I knew that would have to carry on through my life and everything that I did. So I learned a lot. I went on later to school. I was in science. I really like science, but I like the natural science. And I remember one time I was on the second floor of the high school in Santa Cruz, California, where we were living at the time. And the science teacher, it was physics, and he was saying that aerodynamically a bumblebee can't fly. That was the topic. And I was listening to him, and at that moment on the second floor of the classroom, I was looking out the window, and there was a big black bumblebee with yellow stripes around staring at me in the window. And I said, which one of you guys... I couldn't figure it out. So I made a choice and decided to go learn more from nature than I was learning in school. And so I kind of graduated back out into the woods, and I met a good friend of mine. In fact, his brother and I worked with Otis Carr in the Apple Valley when we developed the spaceships. His name was Arthur Aho, and he wrote a book. I don't know if it's still in print or not, but it was called Tomorrow's Energy Need Not Be Fuel. Tomorrow's Energy Need Not Be Fuel. And one of the chapters in there was on bumblebees. And so I became acquainted with him, and we got into the mechanics of what bumblebees do. And it was quite simple. Aerodynamically speaking, and giving credit to my science teacher, they don't fly, but they do levitate. And how they levitate is quite simple. They have next to their larynx a little hollow cavity, just a little shaft, and they start beating their wings, and they start changing their frequency of their environment. And when they get to the frequency of their surrounding. And as an analogy, I'll use the Earth's frequency of 8.5 cycles per second. When they reach that frequency and resonate in that cavity, that beating of the wings, they reach what's called 0 point. They are no longer captivated by the surrounding gravity. They are then capable of going wherever they want to go. They have their own little bubble of gravity around them that they can do anything with. So that intrigued me, and of course fascinated me quite a bit. And then I later learned about hummingbirds, and hummingbirds do similarly the same thing, and there's some lizards that do the same thing. So I had always been interested in magnetics, and I went on and went into the military. I went into in '48, I went into the Army in Fort Ord, California. They eventually shipped us out to Guam. I kept putting in for engineering school, and they said, no, infantry, and they kept kicking me back to the infantry. So while we were on Guam, Korea broke out, and we were in the middle of the night, rushed out, and we made the Wonchon landing in North Korea. And that was quite an experience of what we can do to each other, the harm, the killing, the maiming. It was an incredible experience for me, and I became an objector to killing, and I admit I fired my guns, but I think they all went in the air because I didn't want to shoot anybody, and it bothered me. Well, anyway, make a long story short, I got out of the service, and I was in the 3rd Division, 7th Regimental Combat Team, which their whole function was heavy weapons. They had machine guns and mortars, 4.2 mortars, and big heavy artillery, 1.5 heavy artillery. So when I got out of the service, I was wondering, what am I going to do? I couldn't go to engineering school like I wanted to, and I didn't have the money then to go back. But while I was on Guam, I had learned to, in my leisure time, to go down to the beaches, and I started snorkeling and skin diving. And it was wonderful. It was a whole new world that opened up to me. I realized there was everything I didn't know about life, and I wanted to learn more. And it was all natural, so I was in my element. So when I got out, I started a skin diving business, scuba diving business in San Francisco, California. And at that time, there was a large company, Podesta Divers, that did deep sea diving work, but they couldn't handle the little stuff. So I merged with them a little while, and then I went off on my own, and I got into research and development. I got into recovery, repair. I worked for insurance companies on different claims underwater that they need to have proof of. And then I went to Northern California on mining expeditions. We used suction dredges to dredge the bottom of creeks for gold. And we did pretty good. We had a lot of fun doing that. Well, anyway, I'd been wounded in Korea. I got wounded 4 times, and I had frostbite. Both my feet were frozen, my hands. And that was kind of I never really got over that. I still had limps and bad circulation in my feet well, I still do. But I had family down in Newport Beach, California, which is Southern California. That's down near San Diego. And so I progressively moved down the coast and started diving off the coast there for all kinds of things, even abalone diving. I did a lot of diving. I met my first wife down there, and we got married and had children. And I continued to dive for a while, and the type of diving I was doing interested some people one day on an adjacent boat, and they came over and asked me what I was interested in diving, and I told them that I was a research diver, that I liked to learn and develop techniques. Well, the boat that pulled up alongside of me was from U.S. Divers Corporation, and that was Jacques Cousteau's company that developed the Aqualung. And they were located at that time in Santa Ana, California, which was adjacent to, well, just close to Newport Beach. And my family and I lived in Costa Mesa, which was close to Santa Ana. So they asked me if I'd be interested in joining them in the research and development department. And I was very excited about that. I thought that would be a wonderful opportunity. So I got in there, and then my curiosity and creative part of me started creating ideas that we could use. And eventually, I had the honor of being offered a position of head diver on the Calypso that was going to be on the West Coast. He already had one on the East Coast and was traveling around the Caribbean and so forth. So I thought that was I'd just do that for the rest of my life. That was going to be fun. Well, in my work, my particular job at that time was the wraparound mask. They had a mask that had distortions, and you couldn't quite see out of the corners of them. And I was diving off of Catalina Island. We'd go out for 2 and 3 or 4 or 5 days at a time, checking out different things. And mine was a mask, and I had to check it for leaks and pressure and so forth. Well, my wife got kind of nervous because I've had some close calls. I went down too deep and ran out of air, and I had to come back up. And there was a few things with the elements that I ran into that kind of scared her, and we stayed out a little too long to suit her and my kids. So she said, "No, we need you more domesticated. The kids need you. You've got a family here." And she had a valid point, but I didn't know what to say. That's all I'd ever learned. Well, she picked up a newspaper one day, and it was an advertisement. It was an ad for a research and development technician, a lab tech, at a place called Advanced Kinetics, and that was located in Costa Mesa, California. And she said, "They're looking for a lab tech." And I told her, I don't have any experience. I don't have those credentials. And she said, "Well, you've got all the credentials in the world about your tinkering. You stay up every night, all night long, tinkering with things, and your interest and findings in natural law. I think you should go talk to them." So, make a long story short, I did. I went over, and it was lunchtime when I got there, and there was nobody around. The receptionist wasn't even there, and I was walking down the hall, and I went by the director's office. His name was Dr. Weinhoff, and he happened to be in his office, and he said, "Well, what are you doing?" And I told him, and he said, "Come in, sit down, and what's your qualifications?" And I said, "You got me, goodbye." And he said, no, sit down. And I said, "Well, I love natural law. I think if we all could live by natural law, there would never be any problems, because you know what to expect, you know what to do, and you're always guided in the right direction." And I told him about the bumblebee and the lizards and the snakes, everything that I'd done to learn about it, and that my primary interest in life was magnetics. I was fascinated with magnetism. Well, he said, just 2 weeks ago, we had one of our technicians leave, or he was an engineer. He was working on a project that we have that happens to deal with magnetism. And would you be interested? And I said, well, sure, but I haven't filled out an application. He said, no, are you interested? And I said, yeah. He said, go to work tomorrow morning. So I went home and told my wife, and she was elated. She was, oh, money in the bank again. So, and they were paying pretty good money, but I was flabbergasted. I couldn't believe that he hired me on just my honest truth. That's what got me in there. Well, the experiment that I was working on was, and this was in 1955, I think, or around in the mid 50s, was how to get rockets, spaceships, or anything through these rivers of space that are called magnetic fields. They're vortices in space. And we had to get, my job was to get an electron, just one little tiny electron, through the field, through this magnet, all the way through without deflection, without going to the positive side or the negative side of the magnet. I had a giant super oscilloscope. I had the best cameras available with high-speed cameras that I could take pictures of each time I fired an electron, and a big cathode ray tube that fired the electrons. It's the same thing on your television set that fires, well, now that you've gone digital, it's a little different, but it fires the electrons to the screen, the phosphorus, and it lights up. And these are just the little electrons that are firing. So anyway, I started firing these electrons and taking hundreds and hundreds of pictures every day, and no luck. I couldn't get this electron through the field. And I thought they were going to say something about it, but they just came by and praised me. You're doing a good job, fine, and everything. And I said, well, no, there's an easier way to do this. You guys are using force to get this electron through. And I learned from my experience, you don't force Mother Nature. You understand what's going on, and you work with her if you want to get anywhere. Otherwise, you're chasing your tail. You're going around and around in circles, same old thing. And so, I used an analogy that nature, when she brings water down from the mountains out of the snow, meanders the water. She always goes this way, and it's always refreshing itself. Nitrogen, oxygen, it's pure water. Just every two or 3 feet, you've got pure water. But then I looked at some of the viaducts that humans that we have made that go from Northern California all the way down to Southern California, and they're in straight lines. And it's kind of dead water. It doesn't have the same punch to it. So anyhow, to make a long story short, I knew in my mind I could do better than what they were doing by using natural law. The next bench over for me was they were working on levitation. And what they had was these giant coils. They're just an iron core with copper windings around it. They're about this high, and a steel ball. And they would fire it up with low voltage, and they would increase the voltage till they got the steel ball to levitate for 4 to 8 minutes. And then it would burn out the coil. Well, in those days, this is in the 50s, they'd have to go to supply and get another coil about every hour at least, and they were $400 a copy, and they'd burn up 15 or 20 coils a day. And I thought, this is getting expensive. There's a more natural way to levitation than what they're doing. I just felt it. So, and then we were working on teleportation. Another part of it was, and this was a government-funded research facility. And So we had all these projects with lasers and everything was going on in the lab. Well, because I was a tinker and so forth, I'd had a lot of junk in my garage and at home. And I did a lot of garage sailing and getting parts, taking things apart and seeing how they work. I went home and in one night, well, actually, it might have been 2 nights, I put together the experiment that I was working on in the lab. I took a television apart, I got the cathode ray tube out, the little gun that fires electrons, and I built magnets, positive and negative side of the magnets, universal. And then I mounted a little camera. I had my own little Polaroid camera. And I knew from watching the water come down the hill that if you spiral something, you'll have results. But if you try to force it, you're going to jam up, just like pouring water out of a bottle. If you spin the bottle, that water will come out a lot faster than if you just wait for it to clug, 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 and gasp for air. So anyway, I pulsed the signal. I set the audio amplifier and everything up, and I just pulsed the signal. And the first electron that I fired through that field went all the way through without deflection. It went completely through the field. So I tried it at least 20, 30 more times, and no problem. Not once did it ever go to the negative or positive side. So I thought, well, here comes my raise. I'm going to, I'll get something out of this. This is simple. There's nothing to it. With $50 worth of stuff, I've done the same thing that they're trying to do. So I then looked at their levitation device that they were using, the coil and so forth, and knew I could do better. And I had read about the Eastern, in Tibet, the acoustical levitation they used to use to move giant rocks up and down the sides of mountains. And so I knew that sound and magnetics are really one and the same. They're just different frequencies away. It's the same with light, the same with color. Everything is in frequencies. Everything is everything without exception. Because it's all one. It's all one thing, and it's dissected as you use it. So I took a 15-inch woofer speaker and laid it on the carpet on my living room floor. I took an audio amplifier that I bought at a garage sale probably, and I started experimenting with different objects in the center of the cone. I put all kinds of stuff. And I eventually wound up with a ping pong ball. And I put it in the center of the cone, and I was fooling around, and I got to, and this is a guess because I don't remember, I got to about 28,000 cycles. That's in the frequency that this ping pong ball liked, because it came up and stood right in the center of the cone. I couldn't hear anything, but it was there, and I could push it down, it'd come back up, it'd stay right there. The same thing that you see now with water, you can levitate a giant weight with water, or a hairdryer. If you take a hairdryer and put a ping pong ball on it, you can levitate the ping pong ball. Well, different things of the same thing is what it amounts to, and this was acoustical levitation. So I went to bed. My wife had come to bed. It was late, as always, at night. So I went to bed, and I woke up in the morning, and it was still there. It was still hovering. So I took pictures of that and wrote up an experiment sheet. And I took both these experiments into Dr. Weinhardt. And I said, I'm ready for a raise. I think I got something here. At least we can throw it to the engineers and see what they come up with. That I think we got something we can work with, because it's doing it. And it doesn't cost that much. Well, he told me to come in and sit down, close the door, and he halted the calls, and he said, Ralph, I didn't think you'd I didn't think he'd get into that. He says, I know, he was a famous, he's a full-fledged doctor of physics. And he said, I know it's that simple. I know it's that simple. But there's something you don't understand. You're working here for government-funded research and development. And he said, we're paid to look for the answers, but not to find them. So my world fell apart. I didn't know what to do. Because my background, my education and everything were limited, so I didn't know what the heck to do. But I thought I was, going to go somewhere with this. Well, he said, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to shred this. I'm going to have to ask you not to talk about it and go back to work. Go back. So I did. I went back on my little project, and I lasted 2 more weeks. I just couldn't take it. I almost cried when I went into work the last day that I finally left, because it was redundant. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely boring, because it was like a dog chasing its tail. It was going around and around and around, and we weren't getting anywhere, and we never would, according to what I was told. They didn't want that, So I didn't know what to do, and I went home and told my wife. She wasn't happy about the fact that I wasn't working there anymore. But in the interim, I had met a few people that I started talking to about what had happened to me. And they said, why don't you come over? We've got a gang of people over here, a group of people. There's about 15 or 20 of us that meet every week. And the name of the group was called Understanding. That was it, an Understanding. And it was created eventually by a guy by the name of Daniel Fry in California, for the sole purpose of people getting together and kind of brainstorming, trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together so that we could understand what the heck's going on with ourselves and with our environment. And so I went over there and I started talking about everything I'd learned from nature, which is, you could build a garden that will take care of itself. It would feed and water itself when necessary. You could go away on trips. It would completely take care of itself and ripen everything for you by the time you got back. And I had 100 different ideas that they liked. And in turn, I got 100 different ideas from them. And everybody there had an open mind, if you will. They loved life as it is, and not like we tried to make it. So they said, "Well, you're interested in magnetics," and I had a mission that since childhood I always envisioned us having floating homes, if you will. Homes that we could go anywhere in the world, around the globe that we live in. This itself is a giant spaceship, if you will, the Earth. And I knew that we could build homes that we could live in with everything self-contained, with the gardens, with everything you needed on board, that we could go anywhere. You could go to China for Chinese dinner. We could go to Russia for stroganoff. And so I told him about this, and he said, wait a minute, you're talking about a guy that we know of that's in trouble right now, and his name is Otis Carr, and he's in Norman, Oklahoma, demonstrating what you're trying to get it across to people, that the simplicity of a spaceship, of spacecraft, using magnetics. So they said, we're going to bring both of you guys together because you came out of the same pod. So they did. They asked Mr. Carr and his entourage. He had about 6 or 7 other people with him. He left Oklahoma because the experiments that he was working on, there was an accident with mercury that spilled, and he was getting some bad rap or some bad publicity because he was getting too close to the truth of how simple this was. And at that time, the powers that be didn't really want it to go any further than that. So they were giving him a hard time. So the group, understanding, brought Otis Carr and his people out to California, and we met. And it was like I died and went to heaven. I couldn't believe that I could talk to someone about the laws of nature who not only completely understood them, but every breath he was teaching me something that I needed to know. And it was this teamwork back and forth that accelerated his interests were similar to mine, and it accelerated the ideas of getting it done. And while talking to him, I found out about his background, and he was a disciple. He was a protege, if you will, of Nikola Tesla. And this was in back east in Baltimore, Maryland. And he was, Carr at the time, I think, was a clerk in one of the hotels that Tesla's was staying in. And Tesla got acquainted with him and found that Carr was an open mind. He was like a sponge. He wanted to learn all he could, so Tesla befriended him and taught him endless things about natural law, how simple things are. And so when I found that out, I had heard about Nikola Tesla, and I'd ordered a book from Yugoslavia. You couldn't get it in this country at the time, a great big book on all his patents and all his experiments that he had done. Well, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, I guess. I'm not following my notes my wife made up, and she said, follow your notes or you're going to get lost, and that's where I'm at. Anyhow, I'll back up a little bit. When I left Advanced Kinetics, just a short time after, within a week, and this is the God's truth, 3 guys in black suits, and this is before I even heard anything about Men in Black or any of that stuff, showed up on my doorstep, and they said they were representatives of the DeWalt School of Electronics, and they had somehow heard about a lot of my experiments and things that I were doing, and they asked if they could come in and talk to me. Well, I said, sure. So we got in, and they got a little too probing at first. They wanted to know. My wife got uncomfortable right at first. She was really leery of the questions they were asking. And I've always been one, if people ask questions, I want to give them all the answers I can, no matter what. I want them to know as much as I know so they can give me as much as they know. I'm kind of greedy. I want more. And so they were probing into how I knew all this and other things that I'd gotten into. And my wife became very uncomfortable and asked him to leave. She said, you'll have to leave now, and you can come back later or whatever, but you're going to have to leave. And she explained to me later that she had a hunch that they weren't in our best interest to continue the conversations of what we were doing. And she didn't think they were from this school of electronics. So she told me to get this big book of Teslas and a lot of my experiments, a lot of paperwork, and get them out of the house. She says, I don't know what's going on, and she's been noticing people watching the house and all, and she said, just get them out of here, because I don't want them around the kids and so forth. And I said, okay. Well, I'd heard of I didn't know what to do, and this is just before I met Carr. A guy down in Southern California, in Joshua Joshua Tree, California, by the name of George Van Tassel, that had used a lot of these same techniques, a lot of these same ideas in building what he called an integratron. And this was in Giant Rock, California, I think is where it was, down in Joshua Tree. Well, I was just guided, if you will, to take this book that he could use, because my wife didn't want me to have it anymore, and take it down to him. So I got in my car and I drove down to Giant Rock, and everything was coincidentally happening. I must have been on time because I hit all green lights. I knew where to turn. I didn't have a map, but I got there anyhow, and I got there at the right time, and him and I met eye to eye, and I said, I had something for you, and he says, I know, I've been expecting you. So by then, I was beginning to realize that you can get blown out of the water by just following natural law, just being your natural self and doing your natural thing, not trying to do anything, but just be who you are, that these things happen. So I gave him the book, and he said, thank you, and so forth, and we talked and visited a little while, and then I went off. I was in kind of a daze. This was all kind of new to me. UFOs and everything were kind of, I knew about them and stuff, but I wasn't really into that. So I went over on a little hillside, and I wanted to rest a little bit before I drove back. And I laid down on this hillside, and it was getting twilight time. It was dark, getting dark. And I looked up in the sky, and not hundreds, but thousands of these things were in the sky. I mean, they were everywhere, just lights, blue, green. They were silver, metallic, and they would come over where I was at, and they'd come down, not close enough where I could reach them, which I would like to have done, but they came down close enough so I could see details on the bottom of these things. And then they take off really fast. And that's when I really, really attached nature to there's more here than meets the eye. I mean, there's a lot more that we don't understand going on. And I didn't know why that had happened to me until later on somebody said, well, that's easy. You took the book to a guy that needed it, and this was a thanks from people that knew what's going on, whether you did or not. So I accepted that. And see how I'm doing on time. I guess I'm okay. Get my notes here. Well, let's see. Okay. Page 2. There it is. Okay. Okay. So I got back home, and that's when I was introduced. That's when I was invited and introduced to Otis Carr. And there were some people in the group. These were very influential people in the community. There were doctors. There were I don't know if there was any lawyers, but there was doctors there, and people in government and everything that believed there was something more than what we were doing, and something more that we could be doing. And so one of them had a big cabin up at Lake Arrowhead. That's up near Big Bear. That's up above Riverside, California. That's close to San Bernardino, California. And they said, why don't you boys go on up there until we can figure out what we can do to get you guys going. And we knew we were on a time, a countdown to a window, if you will, of getting something out to the public before we were asked to quit. The same thing as I experienced at the lab. And so they did. They put us up at Lake Arrowhead. There was, I think there was about 8 of us, maybe more, but I remember 8 of us. There was a Dennis Ripoldi, an Art Aho, myself, Norman Colton. There was a lot of us. And we'd sit around all night long and brainstorm. And until the seams just about busted, we wanted to do something. We wanted to get in the lab and start running experiments on what we knew we could do. Well, it wasn't too much longer. Within a week, they called us and said, we've got a lab for you. Coincidentally, down on the other side of the hill in Apple Valley, Hesperia to be exact, there was a giant laboratory built with all the facilities, a warehouse, a laboratory, machine shops, offices, and so forth, that was built, and the people that it was built for didn't want it anymore, or they reneged or something. But it's yours, and no charge. Come on down. So we went down, and we started, right away, we started experimenting, and I got into very, very close proximity to Mr. Carr. And he was like, in retrospect now, he was like a being from another world, and which I know now we all are. and that you just have to get into each other to find that in ourselves and each other, that we all have a storehouses of wisdom and knowledge and talents that have become buried because of circumstances. Well, anyway, we'd sit out under the stars and talk all night long, and I'd never get tired. I would rest. I wouldn't even sleep because I was so fascinated with the subject matter. And he was explaining. Could you put that the interior, the slide on? He was explaining about what he was doing with spaceships. This is the interior of our model, and also of we had a eventually 45-foot model. This is the interior of it. And he was explaining that it's all magnetics. It's these, I don't have a pointer, but there are little things called neutrons. They're double tetrahedron. A double tetrahedron is two ice cream cones stuck together at the top. You have a point and a point. That's a double tetrahedron. And when you look at this a different way, it becomes a square. You can turn it and it becomes a square, or it becomes a circle, or it becomes a pyramid. It is what's referred to as the platonic solids in one sphere, in one thing. And this was the neutron that we used. It had all the shapes in one. And this was explained to me to be what's known as sacred geometry, that once you align yourself with natural laws and the rivers or the frequencies that we live in, then life becomes very, very simple, very, very unique, and you can do anything you want to do. Anything you set your mind to, you can do it, without exception. So, in his day, Nikola Tesla had some brilliant ideas about natural law, and at one time he was put to work by Westinghouse and Edison because of his ability to find how electricity and all the components work. And he developed the dynamo. He developed alternating current, as you probably already know. But in the course of his life, he was asked by the backers. At that time, the main backer was J.P. Morgan. If they couldn't get something going where they could make a lot of money. Well, Tesla wasn't really into money. I mean, he wanted to develop natural sciences, and he was funded by Morgan to go ahead and experiment, and he produced the dynamo. He produced many things to do with electricity. And then he eventually was called in to, I'm using an analogy because I don't know the facts, the details, but I know the essence of it. He was called into Morgan's office and as a progress report, where are you, Tesla? What are you doing? And Tesla said, hey, we've got it made for humanity, we got it made. I can produce electricity from out of the air. We're living in a sea of electricity. It's all around us. It's magnetic in nature. And we can convert that into all the electrical power you'll ever need to operate anything you ever want. And he had been funded, and with part of the funds, he built a couple of places. One was in Colorado Springs and Wardenhof in north of New York and Manhattan Island. These towers that would transmit power without wires. And he would light up things a mile, 2, 3 miles away through the air like magic. And he said, we can produce electricity anywhere on the earth, and we can give people the equivalent of a rod that you can stick 30 feet in the ground and extend 30 feet in the air, and they can run everything that's electrical in their house forever without spending a dime, with no maintenance, no pollution. And Morgan said, wait, stop right there, Tesla. He said, we've got ways to transmit electricity now. We've got copper mills. We can dig into the ground and get copper. We've got trees we can cut down all over the planet to make telephone poles. And that's jobs, Tesla. That means money. That's the monetary system. And that's what we're going to live by. We can't use this stuff. This is, and he said, and Tesla said, but if you would give everybody the right to freedom from a meter charging them for electricity, you would then give them the opportunity to find out who and what they really are, who and what they really want to be, their natural talents. They would be scientists beyond our dreams. There would be artists beyond our dreams that we would allow to come out because they're not in servitude. They're not under the, it's enough, that's enough, Tesla, get out. And that was kind of the end of that. So I got a lot to tell you, so I'm going to cut it a little short, but the upshot of that was that Tesla, from that point on, became very, very disappointed in the system. And he, in trying to get his ideas out, met Otis Carr, who was like a sponge. He sucked up all the information he could. And he told Carr, he said, it looks like they're not going to want what I have to offer. He said, this would make life so much easier for everybody, for all of us. And it doesn't have to do with money. It has to do with love. The love of life, the love of people. And so, Mr. Carr, you're elected. You're going to be my carry-on through, and I'm going to teach you everything I know before I transcend to you give it your best shot and try and get the simplicity of life across to people, how simple it is, and no cost, no money involved at all. It's all labor of love. Well, Carr really got involved with it, and he got busy. He got laboratories together. He started building these things. Oh, that's me. Okay. Anyhow, can you show the large craft, please? The 45-foot diameter craft. That's what Carr was all about. And Carr went into metaphysics. He got into all all facets of the unknown, phenomenal things, esoteric things, and he kept coming back to nature, the laws of nature, which I could really identify with. And so we got down in Apple Valley, and we started building and developing things. This was a large craft. This is the 45-foot craft. The one you saw previous to this, a smaller bench model. Let's see if I'm covering everything here. Excuse me. Circuit of Fourier. Okay, yeah. Okay, this smaller model. Could you put the small model back on again, please? The prototype, the little one. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, I was fortunate enough to be. I was just a technician, and we had many engineers. We had many people, but we didn't use credentials. We used our brains. We used our minds. And Carr would explain time after time to all of us, you've got to go beyond the brain, because the brain is a computer that operates the body, and its sole function is a third-dimensional reality, and it doesn't know or want to know anything beyond that. So if you follow your brain, you're going to stay in the same thing forever and ever and ever, and you'll be chasing your tail around and around. You've got to use your mind. You've got to get out of the brain. Just respect it for what it is, because it's running your body. But so what he meant by that was that the things we were going to experience now that he had learned from Tesla and his own experiments was above the physical, conventional techniques of science, as far as we went in the third dimension. And what he called it was ether technology, above and beyond the taught run-of-the-mill physics. And what he meant by that was you had to use your mind to comprehend. You had to get all your doubts and fears out of the way to get to your mind. And then once you got to your mind, you had to still it down and started following nature. And miracles, he said, would happen. And in my testing of that, I found that, sure enough, the more I calmed down and became just still, the more things would come to me. Things I wanted to know for years. Somebody would show up and hand me a whole book. Or if I wanted a hamburger and I was hungry, but I didn't want to leave the lab, somebody would be getting hamburgers and bring them to the workbench. Just phenomenal things would start happening. So he said, okay, we're going to have this experiment. We put this on the workbench, and we fired it up. This was made out of a high-polished aluminum. That's all it was aluminum. And you could touch the periphery, you could touch anything on the craft, and it was pretty solid. But as they increased the frequencies, it was similar to the ping pong ball experiment, only this was different. This was in a little slightly different dimension than that. They started increasing the frequencies that this craft was vibrating on. It had so many cycles per second that it was operating on in this dimension. So as you increase that frequency, you start getting into resonance with its surroundings. And I kept touching this thing, and then pretty soon I noticed that it was getting softer and softer. And then pretty soon I put my fingers right through the shell of this craft here, right into the side of it, which blew me out of the water. And Carr says, come on. He knew this, he knew all about it. And he knew this is quite simple to understand, that once you reach a resonant frequency of anything, then you're free of the confines of the environment, of any environment, no matter what it is. And like the bumblebee. So we had one more experiment with a craft similar to this that this was the next day, I think it was, or close to the next day. And he said, now we're going to go a little further. And so we increased the frequency like a fan blade. You know, the faster it goes, it starts disappearing. It starts getting fuzzier and fuzzier. Well, this thing right before our very eyes started getting fuzzy. And pretty soon, it was gone, completely gone. And Carr at that moment said, well, I'm not sure it's still here. And it's in another frame of reference that we may have sent it somewhere. It might show up on somebody's table. So that was my experience, my first experience with what's known as teleportation. And that is very simple as well. Once you understand the mechanics of it, it goes slightly beyond the quantum ideas, the quantum mechanics and quantum theories, because you have to use your mind quite a bit. And when you use your mind, you realize that anything below that is illusion, that we're creating it. And we create it through the brain, if you will, in the third dimension, by these little cameras that are flickering microseconds, milliseconds, and creating all these things that we give names to: lights, chairs, tables, people. And we say, well, no, this is solid. Well, it is. Everything is true. There is nothing but truth. There's nothing in the universe outside of truth. It's how we look at it, frames of reference. And so I'm off the track again. Anyhow, he said, this is what we're going to do with the big craft, and this is what we're going to have to get accomplished pretty fast, because they're on to us. They know we're in Apple Valley, and we've been shooting these little guys around the valley using the techniques that we had. And as they entered the atmosphere, they'd have a corona around the outside of them, a glow. And people in Apple Valley were becoming wondering if these were flying saucers. And we couldn't stop the glow. We didn't know how to do that at that time. So we knew that people were going to, the looky-loos and the curiosity seekers would soon be coming in. And because they didn't understand what we were doing, we knew they were going to slow things down. So we wanted to get a demonstrated model out to the public fast enough so that, and documented enough so that people would know that levitation is quite simple. There's nothing to it. In fact, the analogy that I use is that people can't always relate to is you look up in the sky, a clear blue sky, and you see clouds starting to formulate, and then you see them turning dark, and da-da-da-da-da. They're accumulating moisture right out of the air, just like an air well, and they're bringing hundreds, thousands, millions of tons. Water weighs 8 point something per gallon, 8 pounds per gallon. Millions of tons are suspended right over our heads, and then when nature gives a signal, it rains. But that's how simple levitation is. It's a balance. That's all it is. And when you understand the mechanics of magnetics, it's quite simple to levitate anything. Well, anyway, we put a prototype together, a small craft, and we had a meeting with General Motors, motor company that makes General Motors cars, to meet in Riverside at one of the hotels. We said, we want to take your wheel that's going this way on the ground, ruining the ground and grinding up animals and putting pavement everywhere, and we want to turn it sideways. We want the wheel to go from this to this and up. And we can do it. We'll show you. We can take your cars and we can levitate them for the start. And then we'll show you how to go further than that. And eventually, which gets into my department, we could have floating homes, gardens, everything on board. and everybody would have for life their own home, and then cities, and then countries. Well, this guy didn't want to hear this. He looked. We gave him a demonstration, and we levitated a small prototype, and he said no. He said, the monetary system, back to Morgan's idea, there's no money in that. You know, you're gonna ruin everything if you do that. We can't have that. We're making plenty of money with cars, and we'll make plenty more. And so Otis, he's a very humble man, very much a gentleman, and very, very kind to everybody he ever met. And he excused himself and said, well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. But this technology is here. It's always been here. We buried it. And I think we buried it on purpose so that we could create a monetary system. But it's coming back because people are going to get fed up with living in a box, if you will, of chasing their tails, of going around and around and doing the same thing, the same car every year, over and over, just a different color, maybe a different radio. And they're learning nothing but a third-dimensional reality. And in all of space, there's infinite realities to learn about. And some people will be happy to stay in the third dimension and realities. And that's fine, but there's many people that would like to probe and explore other dimensions of reality. And he said, I don't want to hear that stuff. He says, we make cars. What are you doing here with this stuff? So Carr said, well, okay, it's just a matter of time till this happens. And I'm sorry you feel that way. And we left. And it was another sad day for us because we thought, well, there we go again. Well, it wasn't 3 weeks later till things started happening. But before they did, he said, let's get this 45-foot craft up and operational, and maybe we can do something with that to show people. And I was elected, just a technician, knows nothing but natural law. I was elected as one of the people to be on board when we operated the craft. And there was 3 of us. And we had a briefing before we went on board, and Carr said, forget about it, your brain is going to go to, you might as well let it go to sleep because it's not going to comprehend what you're going to do. It's not going to have anything to do. It's not going to understand it. And just be patient and stay in a very calm situation and focused on what you're doing. And then when you get back, we'll have a debriefing and explain everything to you. So we did. We got on board. And what we had was a giant crystal ball, or glass, or crystal. I believe it was crystal, quartz crystal probably. And a light shining up to the bottom of it, which I believe was laser, of some kind of a laser, I'm not sure. And as soon as the light turned on, it took this crystal ball and changed it into infinite colors. It just went from infrared to ultraviolet in millions of degrees. I mean, it was just fading all the way around. And Carr said, okay, today we're going to go about 10 miles downrange, and we're going to an area which we're going to call, not which we're going to call, which is the resonant frequency of aquamarine. That's the color. And he said, okay, just stay where you are, open your minds, and relax. And when you get there, I want you to get out and see what's going on. Well, this globe started to change colors, and then it got into the aquamarine color. The whole globe started turning into aquamarine. Very, very brilliant, and lit up the interior of the craft. It was so bright. And Then this is vague, but as well as I can remember everything, the next thing I remember, he says, "Okay, you're there. Get up, get out of the craft." And we hadn't experienced any movement at all, and I didn't quite understand what was going on. Neither did they, the guys I was with. We said, "Okay," and we got out of the craft, and we were in a different place. We weren't at the lab, and even as I'm relating this now, I didn't remember this until I think years later that I recall it. I'm still recalling some of the things that happened. But we got out, and we were in touch with Carr, and I don't remember if we didn't have cell phones or anything. I don't remember how, but I can still hear Carr's voice right now giving us instructions. And he said, "Pick up rocks, pick up sticks, put them in your pocket, go run up a hill, do whatever you want to get familiar with where you're at." And we spent about 10, 15 minutes doing that. And he says, "Okay, get back on board." And we sat down again. And then this was still glowing, this aquamarine. We got back on board. We noticed that it dimmed back and went back into the multicolors. And we heard Carr saying, "Okay, get out of the craft." And we got out of the craft, and we were back where we started at the lab. And he said that we're going to go into debriefing, and I'll explain this to you. And he said, "Well, what do you guys think? How was your experience?" And I said, "It didn't work, did it?" And he said, "Well, that's the brain." So he said, "Yes, look in your pockets." And I swear to God, it was the most, I can't describe it to you. It's beyond words. We started pulling rocks and sticks out of our pockets. We had no idea where they came from at that moment. And he said, "That's where the spaceships are. That's where they are. They're here, everywhere, right now. People can't see them because they're busy in a third-dimensional reality, or they're locked into a busy frequency that has little to do with knowing what they're doing, but has everything to do with guessing of what they're doing." And he explained that as, my good friend Donald Ware explained it to me the other night when we had dinner. There are different densities of reality. There's a first, second, third, fourth density. And we live, all of us live, well, we fluctuate, but for the most part, all of us are comfortable in one or the other densities. And these are just frequencies that we prefer. And in some cases, they can be called creature comforts. We've gotten used to, a new car every year, a new television, a new house, travel, all the comforts of doing things. And a lot of people don't want to go any further than that, and that's fine. That's fine, but there are a lot of people that do. And so what he was explaining was that, I got to find my notes again. I lost. Okay, 3. Okay. Okay. He was explaining the different dimensions or densities as a box, about living in a box, that you have in a box all the creature comforts you want, but you'll stay in that box for as long as you want. It could be 100 years, 1,000 years, or 1,000,000 years if you like. Nobody's putting any pressure on you but yourself. Or you can start probing things that are outside the box, and it's a different reality. And he explained that as the difference of good and bad, right and wrong, left and right, hot and cold. He said those are all dualities. And the dualities belong in the box. That's when you make decisions. Oh, should I do this? No, I better do this. And the top of the box, as high as you can go in that box, is a belief system where you believe in, let's say, the ultimate science or the ultimate religion. You say, oh, I believe. Well, if you believe in something, you can also be encouraged to disbelieve in something. It vacillates back and forth. And we go through eons of time swinging from left to right or right to wrong or so forth. And Carr said, there's only one. There's only one truth. There's only one reality. And that's outside the box. And that reality is knowing. When you know what you're doing, not guessing. No more decisions. And you have to start refusing to accept decisions. Just know in your heart where you're going and what you're doing is the right thing. And you'll be guided. Things will happen to you. And he was right. The rest of my life, I've lived that way, and everything's been wonderful. I've got a wonderful wife, a wonderful life. I couldn't ask for anything more than I have right now. Except the spaceships. I want that to happen. So he said that, I guess I just read this recently. The sun is warmth, and there's only one warmth. It's with degrees of coldness. There's not a hot and a cold. It's just the absence thereof that makes it so. And I'm still learning this myself, the oneness. It's staggering. There's no end to it. It just goes on to infinity of what that means. But getting back to the spacecraft, he said, what you did, you didn't travel a conventional linear way of traveling. You went outside of and then back into what's called time and space. And he said that's quite simple. And the thing is, everybody everywhere does this all the time. We all do it. The difference is we don't realize it. And that's outside the box. When you realize what you're doing, then you're getting into the knowing. Get into the know of things. I think there's the old saying. Then you get into the knowing of what you're doing. And it's quite a bit different. And what you did was you relaxed enough to allow yourself to go outside of time. Time is a creation that man has created, that has a beginning and an end. And that's all it's for. It's a measuring device. In all truth, there is no such thing as time. It's infinity from one end to the other. There's no beginning, there's no end. And we dissect it to where we want to be, what we want to do. And so he said, what you did, on our clock here, you were gone 5 seconds. And the craft, to the witnesses, the people around that saw it move, lifted off the ground and disappeared, right? And 5 seconds later, it reappeared. To us, we were gone 15 minutes on our clocks, thereabouts, 15 minutes. And he said, time is what you make it. You slowed down time for your experiment, and time was accelerated in our experiment. But forget all of the above, because none of it is necessary except to measure with. Because what you did, everybody's doing all the time, they just don't realize it. Well, then we got into an area of I had to know more about what that meant. And it's like we've all at times experienced finding the parking place I'll know it's going to be there. It has to be there because I'm going to be late if I don't get there. And if you're in the right frame of mind at the right time, it's always there. Without exception, it'll always be there if you get out of your own way. But if you get 1 ounce of doubt in there, that illusion changes. Because we create it. We are the creators of everything that happens to us. In microseconds, everything that happens is happening because we do it in the now. And the past and the future are what we make it. And that there is only one big now, and that you can travel anywhere in the now, in any dimension you want. As simple as you just experienced. And he said, you can take what you call your body, which is nothing more than energy. He says, look at it through the electron microscope. It's all energy. This table's all energy. Everything is energy. And we produce a vehicle for an existence, for a schoolroom, if you will, to experience what's called human life. And we can make it delightful, or we can make it not so delightful. But then we can move on. And what's happened in the box system, as Carr explained it, was people forgot who and what they are. That who and what we are creative beings. We're all extraterrestrials. We're all space beings, if you will. We're all infinite beings. And we're all immortal beings with powers that we can't even dream of in the third dimension with our brain. You can't conceive what we can do. But yet we do it every day. I want a home in the mountains. And you just forget about it until someday somebody comes up and gives you a home in the mountains. It happens that way. If you try to get a home in the mountains, it'll never work because you're trying. And the trying is self-defeating. Everything you try will defeat itself. And you just chase your tail. Can't get anywhere. So, let's see. A couple more minutes and then I'll have some questions and answers. But I'd like to round this off by saying that I recently went through a death experience, absolute death experience. I was and it's all documented, in Las Vegas, Nevada. I originally went into the hospital for knee transplants. I had one bad knee, and they replaced it, and I had another one, and they replaced it. The first one went okay. I had home care. The nurses and everything came in with machines and got me back going again. The second one went well. The operation went well. They put titanium knees in my knees, which is wonderful. I had suffered from a motorcycle accident for 40 years with pain. I didn't know that there was anything else but pain. I thought everybody had pain in their knees. And I was always limping until these operations, and they were wonderful. I have no more pain, and I can run. I can do anything that anybody else can do, even better now, since I know what they are and how they work. But the second recovery, they suggested rather than taking home care that I would go into a rehab facility where they had machines to help me quickly get reoriented to walking and stuff. So I did, and I was there about a week or two and gone through everything they gave me, and I passed all the tests, and they said, okay, well, the rest is up to you. We're going to send you home tomorrow. You're in good shape now. And so I went to bed, and I called my wife and pick me up tomorrow. I'm getting out of here. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and they were giving me a blood transfusion without my knowledge or permission. And I asked what was going on, and they said, you'll have to ask the doctor. I said, well, I'd like to see the doctor. Well, he's not available, blah, blah, blah. And they said, get him in here right away. And in comes these guys, 3 or 4 guys, with a gurney, and they put me on a gurney, strapped me down, got me out to an ambulance, and code 3 emergency. They took me to a hospital that was 25 miles away when we had one right next to the facility. I don't know why. But they got me there and put me in intensive care, and they had about 3 or 4 doctors looking at me, and they tried poking all kinds of stuff in me, trying to find out what was wrong. And they had discovered that night, no blame anywhere, I had received the wrong medication. I was supposed to get antibiotics to help heal my legs or keep from getting blood clots or whatever it was for. And they gave me another patient's medication. And it was the wrong antibiotics. And what had happened, it was killing all my white cells. Now, I don't know anything about medicine. This is just what I was told. And I was pretty near death when I got to the hospital. So anyway, they figured out a whole bunch of stuff and gave me IVs and stuff and got me coming around somewhat. But I was just hovering for 11 days in intensive care. And my wife would come up, bless her heart, every night after work. After working a full day's work, she'd come 45 minutes drive each way to come and see me. And then my our dearest friend from Phoenix, she decided to just leave her job and come up and see me, because we'd been friends for, we go back years and years and years. And I remember getting, I guess, close to death, because they had talked to me about it 2 times. But there was the one time where all these doctors and nurses were in there, and they were with their notepads and everything, and they said, "We've done all we can for you. That's it. See, nothing more we can do. And do you have a priest, or do you have someone you want to call?" And I thought, wait a minute. No, I don't want to hear this. Get my wife and my best friend up here. And so they came, and I went into like a metamorphosis, I guess. I don't know what I'm not a butterfly, but I know what a caterpillar must go through, because it's a thing of the mind. And I knew from Carr and my training with Carr, what I was seeing was not of this world. It was not of the brain. The brain wasn't seeing it, but it was kind of a metamorph. How much time do I have? Oops. I got about 15 minutes, and I'd like to take a couple of questions and answers, but I'll finish this. I went into a state of mind where I realized, wait a minute, I came here to build spaceships, floating homes, floating cities. I'm not done with that. I've gotten sidetracked in all this bologna soup. I've gotten caught here, and something told me, well, you're not going to get out of here till you get your mission done. You came here, you committed to it, and you're not going anywhere till you get it done. So you better just realize that. And my good friend from Phoenix, Arizona, Marcia Brown, and my wife, Ruthie Ring, were encouraging me to don't go anywhere. We need you. And my wife's, I realized, my wife has emphysema, and there's a lot of things that she needs help with. So I knew, for those 2 reasons, I couldn't go anywhere. Well, in a state of mind that it's hard to put into words, I realized that, it's hard to say, that perhaps that dimension that body was dying in is back there somewhere. I might have died to those people, to that illusion, that dimension. But to me, I was reborn, or I was another me. I was me with more and more tenacity, more and more courage and everything. And even my wife and my best friend said, you're the same, but you're different. You're a different being, but you're the same. And it's hard to describe that to anybody if you haven't experienced it. But then, in retrospect, I realized that's what happened. You go through death in a twinkling of an eye. And then I equated that to people going to sleep at night. When you wake up in the morning, it's a new world, all of us. We're dead to the world at night, in a sense. And when we wake up in the morning, we have the power to create our whole day the way we'd like it to be. Or we can leave it up to chance. Oh, well, I don't know this, I don't know that. Is this right, is this wrong? And that's the way it'll go. So, that was my death experience. And I'm now in hot pursuit of creating, and with the help of beings like you that have the same powers that I have, if you will, to get together and get these spaceships off the ground, to get homes for people that they can have from birth on up for the rest of their lives with no pollution, no maintenance, no power bills, and nothing but fun to explore, to have fun with ourselves and everyone else. So that's my goal, that's my mission, and that's what I will do it. And with the help of all you, I'll get it done faster. So I need some help. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I will take some questions if you have a few questions. I think I got 12 minutes left for questions.
Thank you very much, sir. My name is John. I'm from Salt Lake City. Yeah, what happened to Mr. Carr? He's dead, I presume. And his works, his writings that you and he created, where are they today? Do we have access to them?
Okay, Mr. Carr passed on. Let's see. He's been gone now about 10 years. He's passed on, and I didn't get the second part. I'm kind of hard of hearing.
The writings, the works, the books, the technology, is that still available today?
Oh, it's available. I've got a lot of it. If anybody's interested in the Tesla or the car technology, I've got a website. If you got a pencil, I'll be glad to give you my website, and I will pass on all of it, every ounce of it to you. If it's of interest to you, it will help me. My website is what is my website? Okay, it's Vortex, spelled with a V, like Victor, VORTEXX, followed by the numeral 3 at AOL.com. And my name is Ralph Ring, and I'm available 24/7 if you've got any questions or anything that will help us, all of us, get these things off the ground. I know how to do it. In my heart, I've been there and done that. I know what teleportation is. I know who and what we are. We're immaculate, immortal beings, and we don't have to live under servitude anymore. We can just do whatever we want. Now, I'm sorry, I got sidetracked again.
I see more people, so I'll just let you go.
Well, what was the other question? Are they available? Yes. They're all available, so that's my website, or
Okay.
my email address.
Vortex, XXX, VORTEX, XX, 3 at AOL.com?
That's it.
Okay. And besides, do you still have this laboratory available? What are your intentions for helping to bring this out?
Okay,
using all these people here or anyone else?
We have a group of people ongoing now for years, but we formulated a very, very fourth density, if you will, people that are getting out of the box and not having decisions made, not making their own decisions anymore. We're just going with life and following it. And there's about 12 of us. And it's called the Advancement of Sciences Consortium. We're located all over the place, in Ohio, in Phoenix, Arizona, in Colorado, and, well, anyhow.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
You bet.
Appreciate your
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thanks. Anyhow, we do have a group of people that are starting on this, but we need input from everybody, and we don't need money. We need love. That's the whole thing is a labor of love. Money is secondary, and it will come.
Sir, thank you very much for the excellent talk. I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you very much.
This is a little off the subject, but I was wondering if you had an opinion on these chemtrails. What are they? Who's doing it, and why?
Okay, sure. The chemtrails, to me, because I now have to follow the philosophy that everything is good, because I'm on that trail. Everything is okay. Everything is one. That you can dissect it into duality by saying this is the good side of it, this is the bad side of it. But in reality, it's just happening. That's all it's doing. It's happening. They're on the, and I don't know that much about chemtrails. It's just what I've heard and what I've read. But on the dark side, there's chemicals being put into the atmosphere that are detrimental to our health, et cetera, et cetera. On the bright side, there's supposed to be a layer of aluminum and titanium or whatever, reflectors reflecting the sun back so that it will reduce global warming. Now, I don't know, you can take either or of those and do with it you like, but it's the folly of us to experiment with things that are not altogether natural in nature. And I feel once you're conscious of it, once you know what's going on, you raise your conscious level, there's nothing that can hurt you, nothing at all. We do it to ourselves. None of those guys out there. They can't kill me because I've been dead and I know what it's like, so I'm not worried about death anymore. And the same thing from any kind of opposition, I kind of encourage it. Because my worst enemy in life, which was the military, I now respect and honor them for who and what they are. Because they taught me not to kill. They taught me what taking a life is all about. They taught me what suffering and all that's about. So they're my friends in that respect, in frames of reference. So your enemies can become your best friends. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much for your wonderful talk. I really appreciate everything you said. But this is in reference to Daniel Fry. Is there still his school of understanding?
I would hope so. I've lost track of Daniel Fry. I don't know whether he's even still alive. Yeah. But I know somewhere, someplace, that understanding group is still in existence.
Do you know if his books are available?
Does anybody know about Daniel Fry? His books are available? His books are available.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm interested in finding, hopefully someday, the Black Book, because it's supposed to say a lot of things that he had with these people from another dimension, but now I understand that we're all together, so I guess it's just love, harmony, and peace.
There are, I'm sure, the essence of Daniel Fry, like the essence of Ralph Ring and the essence of all of us, are going on somewhere. And if you follow your heart, you'll be led to where you need to be. I know you'll find him.
Yes.
Or his essence.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
I enjoyed it very much. I have a little friend who just turned 14, and for the last 2 years, he's been doing magic. He has tremendous hand-eye coordination, and he's been watching Chris Angel on the A&E channel. Okay. And my question is, does Chris Angel really levitate?
Good question.
And can my friend learn to do it?
And what?
And can my 14-year-old friend learn to do it?
Why not? We can do anything. Chris Angel, and for those of you that don't know, is a latter-day, if you will, magician that is performing incredible feats of magic. And even the best of the magicians, to this day, don't know how he does some of the things that he does. In my frame of reference, he's another prophet, if you will, another angel, if you will, another person coming to us to help us break through the veneer of where we're stuck. Oh, that's just a magic trick. I've seen that, done that. He won't let you get away with that. He'll cut people in half, and half of them will run this way, and half of them will run the other way. The brain can't comprehend that. He's beyond the brain. He's operating in the fourth or fifth density somewhere. He's coming from the mind, and he knows what he's doing, but the rest of us are baffled. But that's encouraging us to lift our consciousness to find out, and we will, because we all do it, we just don't realize it. Sorry, next.
Well, my question was also about Daniel Fry. I recall that he mentioned briefly something about the propulsion of spaceships in the White Sands incident, and he described it analogously as a dog chasing after a bone and never catching it. It's kind of a space keeps moving ahead like that. Now, did you ever make any sense of that, or did he, as a legitimate propulsion system?
Well, like everything else in life, there's different frames of reference in propulsion. In the particular area that I was familiar with and that I like to work in, propulsion no longer exists. It's not moving anything. If you will, the way it was explained to me by Carr, we're wasting our time. If we wanted to go to China for Chinese food, we could get on a plane and travel 7,000 miles around to China, which would take a day or two, and have Chinese food and come back. And he said, what we'll do in our craft, we'll go up above the Earth, which is spinning at 8 to 1,100 miles an hour, and we wait for China to appear, and then we come down. So there's no energy. Next, I'm sorry.
My name is Hertie Proppel, and I'm from Scottsdale, Arizona. And I really, really enjoyed your talk because I've been following Nikola Tesla for a long time. And I would like to ask, where are you? You said you have people in Phoenix, Arizona? You're in Phoenix, Arizona, you said also, with your group?
Do I live there?
No, you said you have a group in Phoenix.
Oh, this group. Okay, the group is, we're from all over, Colorado, Ohio, Bowling Green, Kentucky. We're from all over. But we come together once a week in a teleconference on the telephone. And we kind of brainstorm, we get ideas, and we try to kick each other out of the box. When people try to get into decisions, we kick them out. Just nicely, of course, to let it go, and then let the source guide us where it wants to go. But it is here, and if you care to contact me on my email, I can keep you posted on what we're doing. We're looking at some land in Prescott, Arizona, to develop a large research and development facility, which will build these craft.
Oh,
And that's very much in the picture right now, and it looks like it's not going to be that far away. Within a year or two, I think we'll be getting off the ground with the ideas. So
thank you
I hope I answered your question.
Where are you in Colorado?
What?
Where are you in Colorado?
What part of Colorado?
Where does Sandy live? Colorado Springs?
Springs, I believe, yes.
Colorado Springs. Can I help you?
Thank you for your wonderful story. Since it's been about 35 years since you actually worked in your laboratory, what caused you to shut down the laboratory at that time, and what has changed that will allow you to work on it now?
Thank you. If my wife doesn't catch me, somebody else catches me off base. I forgot to tell you. Time's up, but okay. Okay. The powers that be came into Apple Valley, into our laboratory. There was about 7 or 8 truckloads of these people, and some of them had badges with FBI, some of them had all kinds of credentials, and some of them had weapons. They said, we're shutting you down, we're confiscating everything, we're taking your craft. We found out later it is, to this day, in Los Alamos, New Mexico, 9 stories down underground. The OTC-X1 that I flew in is 9 feet, 9 stories down. They shut us down completely and said we were attempting to overthrow the monetary system of the United States, and we would have to stop. I guess I got to quit. But is there one more question? Quick, I can do it.
Announcement. Excuse me. Hi, I'm Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I just wanted to say that we wanted to thank John Warnhoff for introducing my partner Bill Ryan to Ralph, and it's because Bill Ryan and Ralph got together that all of this has happened, and that Ralph is here today and was able to talk to you about something that he'd been working on for, 40 years or something. And we have seen Ralph come really back from close to being dead, and he's looking fabulous, and we're actually, thrilled to death. He's a wonderful teacher, and he did meet with General Motors, and they did say to him, if you put him up, we'll shoot him down. This was also something
Thank you. And again, where I got off my notes, I meant to give full credit to Project Camelot for all their work they did. Bill Ryan and Carrie Cassidy, who you just met, were responsible for me being here today. And John Warnhoff started it all wherever he went. But I thank all of you, and I'm sorry if just one more question real quick? Oh, okay, I got to quit. I love you all, and God bless. Thank you.